This is a mini deep dive, but we're deeping. We're deeping. We're going to start off with the first story tonight, ladies and gentlemen, here. When you think about billionaires, you probably think about people like Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. Those are the easy ones to spot. I think a lot of people are familiar with them. But a lot of billionaires are unknown. There are many of them walking among us, and you would probably never even know that they are a billionaire. In fact, most billionaires go under the radar. And that cannot be further from the truth with billionaire Gerald Chen. Now, a lot of you probably have not heard of him because it's a local situation here for me. That's why I'm familiar with Gerald Chen. And I want to explain to you what he is doing and how he is hurting small businesses, how he is hurting, of course, entrepreneurs, and how this can affect other people as well, even if you don't live here. Something very interesting about some of these billionaires is that they tend to donate, right? They tend to donate to universities. Sometimes they'll donate to a hospital, and the hospital will name a whole like medical wing after them. They tend to contribute to philanthropy. Yeah, I always kind of call that a cover. I kind of do in a way. It's like, so they can be known for their philanthropy, so that you're not focused on the fact that they have exploited workers. And that is also the case for Gerald Chen. I want to take you back a couple of years ago. Now we're going to go way back. September 2014, when Gerald Chen donated money to Harvard. Listen to this.
Reuters reports that Hong Kong real estate billionaires Ronnie and Gerald Chen have donated $350 million to Harvard University. The donation has been channeled through the brothers' charity group, the Morningside Foundation. The principal beneficiary of the $350 million gift is the university's School of Public Health.
Pause. Now, hearing that part, it sounds like, oh, this is a generous person. They're donating to Harvard University, but it's actually not uncommon for an alum of Harvard to donate money to Harvard, especially if they go on to become a billionaire. That's not uncommon. But if you notice what that commentator said, he said that this is done through the Morningside group. And this is another thing I want you to be aware of. It's not uncommon for people who have a lot of money. When they do make a donation, it's either an anonymous donation or it's done through another group. So that way, sometimes you can't always link things back to them or whatever. They have different ways of doing this. They're also known for setting up shell companies, similar here with Gerald Chen and his friend as well. So when you hear this, it sounds like he's a great person. It sounds like he's doing stuff that people would approve of, donating money. I mean, why would you be against that, right? But that was just the beginning. That was just the beginning.
Ronnie and Gerald Chen are two of the richest people in Hong Kong, with combined net worth of about $3 billion US. Their main source of wealth is the Hong Leong Group, which is engaged in property development and management, car park management, and dry cleaning businesses. The company is the largest real estate company in Hong Kong. Its main properties are the Standard Chartered Bank Building and the Grand Center in Tsim Sha Tsui. The billionaire brothers established the Morningside Foundation in 1996 to support higher education in North America and Asia.
Pause. So one of the things he said there, you'll notice that they started with real estate development in Hong Kong first, and then made their way to real estate development here in the United States. Let's continue.
According to the Reuters report, the donation by Morningside Foundation has no restrictions and conditions, but will focus on supporting efforts such as increased financial aid for students, loan forgiveness for graduates who work in underserved areas, new classrooms, and seed money for path-breaking research too novel to win support from other funders.
Sounds good, right? I mean, all of that sounds positive. You're helping students get financial aid. You're donating money to the university. You're trying to give back because that was his alma mater. So it looks like he's doing something that's really great, right? Now, that was 2014. But then the real agenda eventually comes to light. Gerald Chan's real goal here was to buy up businesses in Harvard Square. Now, this is something that people have been warning about for, I've been here since 2011 in Eastern Massachusetts. So like in the Boston area, I started hearing about foreign investors buying real estate in Boston, Cambridge, Somerville area. It was around 2013 when I started to hear about it. And I want to show you what has happened. There was a warning that was sent out, and this warning actually came from the Harvard Crimson about Gerald Chan. Hong Kong billionaire buys up Harvard Square real estate. So I remember this business right here called Upstairs on the Square. That was another one of those little, cool, like divey restaurant, bar, pub type places right there in Harvard Square, in the heart of it all. And then one day I noticed that it closed. And like many other businesses have had to close. But why? It goes on to say here, all of the property at this time in 2014 that was bought by Gerald Chan. So if you look at Harvard Square, you'll see over here on JFK Street, 33.15 million, 31.7 million, 16 million. So that's all right next to each other there, right? So if we move over a little bit, Bow Street, 2.95 million, Mass Ave, 5.9 million, Remington Street, 8.3 million. And then over here, of course, on Mass Ave as well, 13 million. That was in 2014. That's how many properties Gerald Chan purchased in that 1 year. And he has continued to do so since then. Now, what do you think happens to the other properties that are in that area when a billionaire comes in and he buys up the property and this is what they do. They buy up the property, they renovate it, they increase the rent. What do you think happens to the other properties that are next to it? Their rent is going to increase too. Think about that when we get to small business owners. This was the warning sent out. Billionaire Hong Kong investor and Harvard School of Public Health alum Gerald Chan has made waves in Harvard Square in recent months with purchase of Square real estate totaling more than $100 million. His acquisitions include the property at Winthrop Square, which houses Grindel's Den, and recently closed Upstairs on the Square, a recently vacated American Express building, and the stretch of property from 18 to 28 JFK Street, which includes Uno's and Papria's. One of Chan's most recent purchases is 39 JFK Street, the former home of Leo's Place Diner and the American Express office, both of which closed after the transfer of ownership. Everybody hear this? According to an article in Banker and Tradesman, Chan paid $33.15 million for the property. So notice how these businesses, some of those, again, Leo's Place Diner, small mom and pop place, notice how they had to close after he purchased the property. That's because they can't afford the rent. It goes on to say Hong Kong to Harvard. Real estate is nothing new for Chan, who is a non-executive director at Hang Lung Properties Limited, one of the largest real estate companies in Hong Kong. He also works alongside his brother here. The brothers are ranked 17th on Forbes magazine, Hong Kong's 50 richest list. According to Banker and Tradesman article, Chan made his purchases through a series of shell companies, which are all connected to Morningside Group, Chan's investment company. Now we're moving a little bit here, and it talks about him, being an alum. They go on to say that Chan's Morningside Group established the Morningside Professorship in radiobiology at the John B. Little Center for Radiation and Science Environmental Health at HSPH in 2012. Similar to his connections at HSPH, Chan has had ties to Harvard Square since his days as a student and recently purchased a home on Brattle Street. Now, let me pause there for a second. Most people here cannot afford to purchase a home in Cambridge, and especially not in Harvard Square. Harvard Square is expensive. And sometimes people point fingers at the law students and they say it's their fault because they're willing to pay a lot in rent, but it's not just the law students. What you have to understand is that when you have a billionaire like Gerald Chan that comes in and he buys up all these different properties, and even if he's going to turn this into an office or something like that, it doesn't matter because it still affects the housing in the area. So if you live in an apartment building that is next to one of the buildings that Gerald Chan purchased, that means that your rent is going to increase too. And the fact that this guy can come in and he can just buy a house on Brattle Street, this is insane. I know a lot of people here who can't afford to even rent in Harvard Square. So keep that in mind. He is killing the working class. Everybody has to see this for what this really is. It goes on to say here, out with the old, despite exciting changes brought by the transitions and ownership, many of Chan's purchases have been followed by the departure of longtime tenants. The market is whatever the market is. That's coming from Jillison. Any purchaser and any developer can pay whatever they deem appropriate. And that lies the problem. Any developer can come in and pay whatever they want. And that means that your rent is going to increase. And that means if you own a small business within that area, that means your rent for that business is going to increase. And this is how slowly but surely over time, people like Gerald Chan have caused small businesses in Harvard Square to go out of business. And that's what he wants. He wants you to go out of business so then he can buy it and turn it into whatever he wants. Not to mention a lot of these buildings that he bought and he said he was going to create something with are still vacant. Now, I don't know if everyone here has ever been to Harvard Square or is familiar with that area, the Cambridge area. But if you are local and you're from here, then you do know that Harvard Square has changed over the past 10 years. It's very different than when I first moved here in 2011. Now, when you walk through Harvard Square, most of the businesses, the mom and pop places that had been there for decades are gone. Not because they wanted to leave, but because they couldn't afford to stay there because of people like Gerald Chan. Now, when you walk through Harvard Square, what you see are a lot of vacant office spaces, vacant buildings that Gerald Chan bought, and they're not even being used. And I know it's Harvard, and I know it's an expensive university, but what I'm telling you is this is not new. People are doing this in college areas. People are doing this in low income areas, buying these buildings, just purchasing them outright and causing the people in the neighborhood to have an increase of rent, and they can't afford to live there anymore. And the businesses can't afford to stay there anymore. So now instead of having so-and-so Shake Shack or Bobby's Burgers, they're being replaced, and they're being replaced by another Starbucks as if you need another one. They're being replaced by another Pinkberry as if you need another one. So slowly but surely over time, this neighborhood that had more mom and pop restaurants and businesses is starting to become very generic, and it's starting to look like your typical cookie cutter area. We'll go on a little bit more here. It says iconic Cambridge bar and restaurant upstairs on the square was the first establishment to shut down after Chan's acquisitions of property. See, that was one I told you about. It goes on to say after 31 years of business, the restaurant announces closing soon after Chan purchased the property. So 31 years, a mom and pop business, 31 years, just done, just like that. Because of Gerald Chan. And this is where you can see the sign here. I remember this was on the window. Upstairs on the square has closed. Thank you for your support. There's been many of them, right? So that was just one of them at that point in time. It says also after 9 years in the square, Indian Bistro Tamarind Bay was forced to close its doors when the restaurant's rent doubled following Chan's purchase of the property at 75 Winthrop Street. That was another mom and pop business gone because of Gerald Chan. The space will be occupied by Night Market. He goes on and brings up what was supposed to replace that, which was going to be a Japanese restaurant operated by Gerald Chan's son. So Gerald Chan pushed out the Indian restaurant, which had been there for 9 years. And that opened up the door for his son to come in and open his own business. How is this fair? How is this right? Some things never change. In spite of all the closures, Chan said he's working to preserve the culture of Harvard Square. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a typical response from these investors that come in and they destroy these communities. They all say that they're going to preserve the culture, but they don't. That's a talking point. They push the people out. Here's another one here. It says, there was one here with Grindel's Den. This is a very popular place in Harvard Square. It says that they had no plans to change occupancy, according to Carrie, who was the co-owner and general manager at that time. Their lease didn't end until 2020. I don't even know if those are the same people that own Grindel's Den at this point in time. So they were, and this goes on, but they were sounding the alarm about Gerald Chan, the billionaire, and how he was basically killing small businesses back in 2014. And now we fast forward to 2025. And here's another one. Closure of a beloved bar in Harvard Square prompts questions about the landlord. I'll let you guys guess. Who do you think the landlord was? Right? Guess. Who became the landlord? Now, I have been to this establishment many a nights. It's a dive bar type feel. It's very chill. Whitney's in Harvard Square. It's cheap. So especially if you're a college student, a lot of the college students come there because it's cheap, it's affordable, and it's a pretty chill place. Not anymore because of Gerald Chan. We're going to get into what happened. This happened this year. This just happened. In late December, Dan McGuire said goodbye to friends and longtime patrons of Whitney's of Harvard Square and locked the doors for good. I didn't find out about this until this year. Whitney's was one of the neighborhood's oldest establishments, a mainstay on busy JFK Street since 1953. McGuire was forced to close after losing an eviction battle with his landlord, billionaire Gerald Chan. So here we go again. Here we have a business that had been there since 1953, and just like that, they have to close because of Gerald Chan. These aren't new businesses, you guys. These are staples in the community that have been there for decades. And just like that, they had to pack up and leave because they couldn't afford to stay there anymore. This is a problem. And no one stopped it. No one. The city of Cambridge didn't come in and stop Gerald Chan from buying up all these properties. There needs to be some type of law about that. Why are all of these investors, he's another foreign investor, coming in, buying up all the property and destroying small businesses? That's not right. But they allowed it to happen. So part of this blame is on Gerald Chan, but part of this blame is on the city of Cambridge for allowing this to happen, for not having any laws in place that would stop it. A spokesperson for Chan says McGuire owed $44,000 in past due rent. See, this is what they try to do. But McGuire countered that he withheld rent following a dispute over upgrades to the building's electricity system. He claims Chan wanted him out because his bar doesn't fit Chan's profile. Now, I am more willing to believe McGuire because in Massachusetts, you actually do have more rights as a tenant, right? You have more rights. So if there are electrical issues in the building, as the landlord, you are supposed to fix those issues. If you do not fix it, yes, the tenant they have a right to withhold their rent. That's Massachusetts law. So how is it that Gerald Chan was able to evict this guy? No one is stopping these billionaires. No one is stopping them from destroying working class people, from destroying their businesses, from destroying their housing, from destroying their lives. There's no check in place here. McGuire was right because he knew the law. Chan owns about 13 properties in Harvard Square. See, it's 13 now. See how we went up? Making him second only to Harvard University when it comes to property ownership in the neighborhood, according to Harvard Square Business Association. So this is a problem. Some community members worry the once vibrant urban center filled with local shops is losing its character. The city has tried to step in to address the issues of vacant properties and intimidation tactics. Business owners and leaders say problems have accelerated with Chan's real estate investments. His companies have purchased some 170 million in property since 2012, according to the Harvard Business Association. So they are upset about it losing its character, but the reality is the main anger should be towards the fact that you have a billionaire that came in and bought up all of these properties. And that's part of the reason why the character has been destroyed, but he put people out of business. He put small business owners out of business. Do you know how much it costs to try to get a business in Harvard Square today? It didn't cost as much in 1953. That's why Whitney's was able to do it. Working class people open a small bar and say, we're just going to make this a bar and do the thing. So this is corruption. And I don't want to hear it from the city of Cambridge. It's just like, well, we tried to put pressure. No, there needs to be some type of a limitation for people being able to buy up all these buildings. They're pricing people out. And if it's happening here, I know it's happening where you are as well. This is not unique to Cambridge. It's happening in DC, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Raleigh, North Carolina. It's spreading. Now he's sneaky because he likes to stay under the radar for the most part. Most people have never heard of this guy, and that's the way he likes it. But he's buying up all of this stuff. This is terrible. And if the city of Cambridge doesn't put something in place, this is going to continue. There is no accountability here, and there's no limitation on these billionaires just buying up property and putting people out of their homes. Now, we talk about the working class, and we talk about entrepreneurship, and we talk about people having a dream and saying, you know what, I want to own my own business. I want my own brick and mortar, and people working hard to get the money, to get the loan, to be able to do those things. And all it takes is for one person who's a billionaire to come in, and all of a sudden what you had and what you built is gone. That's not a black thing. That's not a white thing. That's not a Democrat thing. That's not a Republican thing. That's a billionaire thing. I have tried to tell people over and over again the danger about this and what we're running into just as a society. If we don't put a stop to this, the American dream is already gone, right? The American dream is already gone. But if we don't put a stop to this, ladies and gentlemen, what's going to be left? So when we talk about winners and losers, I would say that the losers are working class people because they're losing their mom and pop businesses. They're losing their apartments. They're having to move. And unfortunately, unless something changes about the corruption that we have within this system, Gerald Chan and other billionaires like him will continue to be the winners. Share this with a friend. He might be coming to your area soon. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.